Does this sound all too familiar? Oh, well hello Eusebius, it's good to see you. I'm looking forward to hearing you in your lesson today.
Well, the thing is, Meister Florestan, I didn't get a chance to practice anything.
What do you mean you didn't practice? I gave you a week's worth of assignment. Why didn't you do anything?
I just had so much going on, I didn't know where to start. Everything was spinning. I don't know.
One of the best ways to practice is to use a practice journal. That's what we're going to tackle this week on I often get asked by my students, how do I practice? What's the best way to make use of the time that I have? And that gets really complicated, especially when you consider things like homework, outside school commitments. What's the best way to tackle this? I think one of the best ways to practice deliberately is to stay organized. And one of the best tools that I recommend to my students is to keep a practice journal. A practice journal allows you to put in your goals and then see your daily and your weekly progress towards those bigger 30,000-foot view goals. I'm a big fan of using an analog notebook to do your practice journaling, whether that's a simple notebook that you can buy in any store or something like this dedicated practice journal that's available at Liquid Drum. I'll put a link below in the comments section so that you can check it out yourself. The reason I like using an analog notebook rather than inputting it into an iPad or to an iPhone is because it allows me to step back from technology and really collect my thoughts. The tools you're going to need to do your most effective practice journaling are, as I mentioned, the practice journal itself, some sort of writing implement like this awesome pencil. You're also going to need a calendar to stay focused on all the different things that you need to do and how much time you actually have to get them done. I also recommend keeping a whiteboard. It's the first thing that I walk by in my studio. And just taking a glance at it allows me to see what my goals are. So I can see what my 30,000-foot projects are, the things I need to get done for the semester or for the year, as well as an area that I can break down each of the weekly goals. Last thing I'd recommend is having an organized and inviting practice space. Now, that may not always be possible if your only practice facilities are those 10 by 10 cinder block rooms at schools. But if you have your own home studio, I encourage you to make your practice space as inviting as possible so that you want to go back in and practice. So the first thing you're going to notate in your practice journal is those big goals that you have. Could be something like an important audition, could be a recital, anything that's going to require that weekly and daily practice to achieve. Once we've set that big goal and you know where the deadline is, then we can backtrack and work on our weekly and daily goals to achieve it. If I'm working on a recital, the next thing I like to do is to put my repertoire into 3 different categories. So the A category are things that I could fall out of bed tomorrow and nail, absolutely no problems. The C pile are things that I've never played before, or I have absolutely no idea what's going on with them, or they have some massive technical or musical issues. The B pile is somewhere in between the A pile and the C pile, and the goal is to start with the C pile material, move that over to the B pile, and gradually move all of that B pile material to the A pile. I'd also like to point out that every piece might have its own A, B, and C sections, and so for that reason, I'll often learn a piece out of order so that I can spend most of my time on the harder sections first. The next step is to write down your weekly goals. This could be something as simple as the assignment that your teacher gives you from week to week. Basically here, you want to take a look at your entire week, see how much time you actually have to practice, and what's really achievable. At the end of the week, you can take a look back at how well you achieved your goals, and then you can plan for the next week, knowing you might have to adjust your pieces and your learning strategy here and there based on how many hours you have to practice, based on what you need to get done, how close you are to the deadline. All right, now we get down to the meat and potatoes of it, the daily practice journaling. Here, you want to be very specific with what you're doing and how much time it's taking to achieve your goals. So I would notate the date, the time, and that can either be like an hour or it could be something like, say, 12 to 1 p.m. I would notate the piece that you're working on, what section of that piece you're working on, and then also the tempo. My advice would be to work on the C material every single day until you get it into the B pile, while also adding a little bit of A and B material into your daily practice just to make sure you keep it under your hands. The last thing I'll say about practicing C material is I would go way under tempo to make sure I'm inputting the correct information into my hands and my brain. So that means I'm putting in the correct articulations, dynamics, musical phrasing, stickings, all of those things right from the get-go at 50% tempo, and then I can bump it up, rather than starting at a faster tempo and then having to go back and retrain your muscles how to do articulations and the different dynamics if you just focused on the notes and the rhythms only. I hope this gives you a few pointers. I'd love to hear your feedback about how you practice and what works for you, so leave those comments below. Thanks and happy practicing.